My name is Patrick, and I'm from Knowit Experience in Bergen in Norway. And I have a small confession to make. I actually like JavaScript. But no JavaScript frameworks were made during this talk, but I did use some other frameworks, which I'll show later. So what is Canvas? Canvas is just a way to draw things in JavaScript, and you can pretty much do something really basic, like draw a line, and you don't really require that much code. You just make a canvas element, and then you get it in your JavaScript, and then you can begin a path and just draw something. And the code isn't that long, and you can have fallbacks inside, and the browser treats it just like a img tag. So it's pretty much supported in everything. And well, you can use Canvas to make some pretty animations. I'm not going to show this one, but it's just spinning around, and you can see the numbers change and so on. But it isn't really that useful to make small animations like this, because usually you just make some simple animation in CSS and it's enough. Or if it's more advanced, then you often need a designer or someone with more experience animating things, and they'll make an SVG or a GIF for you, and you just use that instead, because it will take them maybe 30 minutes or an hour, while you might use 2 or 3 or 5 hours to make something as pretty by drawing lines. And it's just such a hassle. But interactivity is somewhere that Canvas really shines, because you can treat the canvas just like a graphical interface, and you can know where your mouse is, and you can actually do things. An example here is a Wheel of Fortune that someone made, and I changed it up so that we could use it as a wine lottery. So most of the offices have a wine lottery sometimes, and what I did here is that I just made a small JSON file with a name and a number, where the number is just the amount of tickets you would have. And then I can count the total weight with a small function, which I hope is readable. So you just take each data point and you count or tally up the amount, and make a circle. And this I can just hold with my mouse and spin, and then you get the winner afterwards. So how long do you guys think this took to make in Canvas? Any number?
An hour, perhaps?
Yeah, it took an hour. It took literally an hour, because there are so many resources and things you can use on the internet to really bootstrap your efforts. And the major time that this will take is, integrating it with some payment system or something to automate the amounts and names. And Canvas has really great documentation, and you don't need a lot of code to write something. This is just, a circle, and to draw it, you just say, hey, I need a new circle, and you're done. So it's great that you can make interactive things really quickly. But still, things will take time, and often in customer projects, time is of the essence, and you don't need that kind of interactivity. I've seen some forms which have these step indicators, and you'll see that, oh, now you're on step number 2. And usually those change colors as you pass. You can make something like that with Canvas quite quickly, and you can add some more animations or more things. And you can probably find use for it in a calculator. But the realistic point or place to use Canvas is something entirely else. It's in the intersection where a normal browser feature would have too little support, but you can use Canvas to bootstrap it. And you can just make a fallback for that one device, Opera Mini, which doesn't fully support things. And there is a large domain that has issues in web at the moment that you can't really do, and that's image processing. Because if you try to, let's say, put a overlay over your image, it will look terrible in most browsers. You can do something called blend modes, which actually blends the color with the image so that it makes it darker. And if you have some text over the image, it's hardly readable here, but in the blend you can see it, and in the overlay the image looks not that good. And there are so many blend modes that are supported, and almost all of these are implemented in Canvas. And while a completely red overlay doesn't look pretty, you can make some really actual cool overlays quickly. Here you just have a gradient and you select a multiply mode or blend mode and then put it on your image, and it's easy to have some readable text anywhere here, because as you can see, this entire image is dark and this entire image is light. So you can end up having multiple blends and combining them, or actually making something like this where the image fades out and it will look good regardless of whether the image was dark to begin with or not. And you can also check out the individual pixels of an image, so you can sample it to figure out that, hey, this image is really light, maybe I need to do some other logic. And here's an actual use case that I did for a customer, and we tried first using blend modes in CSS, and it obviously didn't work because in Internet and Safari and Edge, and that's too many browsers where it ended up being ugly. But with Canvas, it was just in Internet Explorer, and then we could have a fallback that was just, instead of having a blue overlay like that, we could make a slightly uglier black, for instance. But it's still good enough. And the things you have to do to get it working is just make the canvas, get your context, and then you start drawing. And you just have to make a simple gradient. You can make more advanced, of course, if you like. You get your image, and then you select how you want to blend it, and then you just fill it in. So at this point, we're up to 9 lines of code, and we already have blended an image. And if you add the canvas thing as well, you're maybe maximum at 15. So it's really not that hard. It's quick to do, and it's something that can be used today to make projects better and to improve your graphics. One thing that is not supporting Canvas is having background cover modes. For instance, if you have a background image in your browser and the image is a square, but you want to put it into a rectangular box, then in Canvas it will get stretched. But in a browser, you can, if you set this as a background image, say that, okay, don't stretch it, just crop it so that it fits. This you'll have to do manually in Canvas, but it's really not that hard either. You just check the aspect ratios, and then you cut off whatever is missing, and you can set in a small snippet of it. And this is code that you can easily find on the internet and just copy-paste. And then it doesn't really take more than 5 or 10 minutes to be done with it. So you can crop your images as you like at the same time, and you can also do things asynchronously so that it works in the background if you want to do some heavy operations. None of this is heavy. This is just, dividing something and multiplying something. The question is, before I end, if you should do it in the front end. In many projects, you might prefer to cache the image and do it in the back end. That's not reasonable to do in smaller projects, since it will usually take more time to set up, and testing it in the back end is harder as well, since you don't get the immediate result. But in front end, you can just try things in JavaScript, and you won't destroy anything if you do it wrong, and you don't have to think about the storage space. So, well, that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Do you have any website where we can see the effect of that?
Yeah, we can go on. We can go on a site. Let's see this site here. So in this one, they have a image, the one that I showed, and they also have an icon they could choose how to place. And they are running a TV campaign right now for homemade electricity. So now you have this blue overlay, which is basically put on, and it immediately loads. It doesn't really use any extra time. So that's an example of somewhere you could use it. And here the image is cropped as well to a sensible size in the top, so that I can choose how to cut it and center it, which are things you would have to do anyways, regardless of how you do it. And well, this module here is very flexible, since you can add a ton of things in it, but that's another question in itself. So
you showed a browser support matrix for I think doesn't matter.
Yes.
Making something like that, you know, visually, would that be a good fit for Canvas?
The browser support thing.
Yeah, no, just making something.
Oh, yeah, I understand the question. Let's see. If I write in Canvas, you're thinking about the making bar charts, for instance. You could do it, but I would usually just use chart.es or something like that. Frameworks say you just input a JSON file of data points and you select a bar mode or a chart mode and you get it output and it's done and works and everything. I would just use it because it's quicker and it's still lightweight enough. And they all usually support things like zoom and extra hover effects and things that would take time to implement. So in the case of charts, I would almost always just use another framework instead of Canvas. But you could do it in Canvas without any issues. So.
I'm not certain, but I think SVG supports blend mode as well.
I think it does. Let's see, SVG blend. Well, basic support is there, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure. You have filter, Photoshop-like effects, so maybe it is. This is probably the blend mode inside this part, so it's likely correct. But I don't know about you guys, but most developers I know in frontend aren't really that good with making SVGs and SVG animations. There are some that are, but at least I am not. So. Well, yeah, you could probably use SVG instead, and that's was the talking point in the animation part, where usually it would be easier to get a designer or someone who works in animation to just make an SVG or a GIF that has an animation instead, unless you want it interactive in some way, because that would be quicker to have someone who does this every day do it than have a normal developer. Any other questions? Well, thank you.